So moving on to the next technologies with diabetes. It's the same thing. A few words about glycation gap you will have to know. What is glycation gap? The same thing. You see HbA1c. HbA1c usually requires a gold standard technique. Okay, so the gold standard technique for HbA1c estimation is high performance liquid chromatography. Okay, similarly for any steroid preparation, the gold standard preparation techniques for analysis would be LCMS. Okay, so if you look into HPLC, high performance liquid chromatography, not everyone will have that machine. That machine will cost you around 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs. So not every lab in every town, in every hospital will have that. The other small issue with your HPLC machine is that you have to put the HbA1c samples in batches. Imagine I have started my endocrine practice and I'm in my OPD. And in the initial years of practice, my patient would be clustered throughout the day. And the moment they come to me, they give a HbA1c sample. I will have to immediately release their report within 2 hours. So throughout the day, as they are clustering, I can ask the patient to wait until I get a sample of 10 and then run a batch and then give them. That can work well with large lab setups. Okay. So they get batches of sample, they can run immediately, then they can send it off. So usually they go with other methods, the practitioners. So nephelometry is available, immunoturbidometry is available, and you have other techniques like point of care techniques are also available in the market, like boron affinity techniques. Immediately you put the sample, run within 2 to 3 minutes, you will get the sample. So all these things are available. So why should we even use HPLC is a question that's practically asked in Indian setup. Okay. So what DCCT has done, based on the DCCT trial, what they did is they tried to standardize this HbA1c with your HPLC technique. So what they did is these labs should be in tie-up with the higher center where they are utilizing HPLC. And frequently an external audit has to be done. External auditing sort of thing could be done. External quality control is what we generally say. So we send the samples to their lab and the same sample has to be run here and we will generate a value. Same sample will be run there and they will generate a value. The difference between the not one sample, more than one sample has to be given. The difference between them would be put as standard deviation, set standard deviation. If that standard deviation is within this mark, your lab is well qualified to certify your patient with the quality report of HbA1c. That is what we generally do. These are all lab basics. But you have to know that always the gold standard for HbA1c is HPLC technique. But even that HPLC technique cannot be relied upon in some situation. You know how. You see a patient with the HbA1c of 6, two patients. One patient is a type 1 diabetic patient. The other patient is a pre-diabetic patient. This patient is on insulin. This patient is yet not on treatment. Clear? So the patient who is on insulin, no, his 24 hours glucose profile would be in such a way that in the morning it would be very, very low. Slowly in the morning session, it starts to spike and usually it spikes. It reaches 300 and all, then comes down. Afternoon it will reach 300, comes down. Very erratically it will go. Lot of time spent in hypos. So if you look into the total profile of the patient, around 60% of the time the patient would be hyper. Okay, 40% of the total day would have been spent in hypo. Imagine 8 p.m. to the next morning 6 a.m. The patient wasn't been hypo only. Okay, but if you look, since half of the time is spent in hyper, half of the time is spent in hypo, with no normal ranges in between, you can get an average of 6, HbA1c of 6. Just by looking into the HbA1c of 6, you will think the patient is well controlled, but actually the patient is not controlled at all. Clear? If you take the same pre-diabetes patient, the patient would be having a normal profile only, no hypos, no, but on and off, the patient would be going in a hyper. Okay, totally the patient's value would be normal, that is 5.7 range, less than. On and off, the patient is going in for a hyper. That is why he or she is getting a HbA1c of 6. So for the same HbA1c of 6, the profile varies. Clear? Okay. Now, there is something called as glycation gap that you have to know. Okay. Because for such a patient, since it is very erratic, okay, so you can either do a continuous glucose monitoring. Put the patient on a sensor. Type 1 diabetic patient, I mean to say, put the patient on a sensor. So what the sensor will do? It will be continuously taking all the patient's data. So continuously for the next 14 weeks, it will be taking data. Day 3 data. I'm just overlapping the data again and again. Similarly, on day 4, day 5, until 14 days data, and finally it will be giving you, wait, I will show you. So these are all the total 14 days data from here to here. And finally, it will give you a line like this, a median line. Okay. And with all these 14 days, 24-hour data, it will adjust and it will be giving you a mean blood glucose. This mean blood glucose is the actual glucose that you have. Okay. Now imagine 60% of the time the patient is in hyper. 40% of the time the patient is in hypo. The A1C will never be 6 here. Okay. Since the patient has erratic values, the average would be coming somewhere higher only because it's more higher. So if you look into the calculated HbA1c of CGMS, which is otherwise called as mean blood glucose, it would be somewhere around 8% compared to your HbA1c, which you measure by the HPLC technique, which is 6. Clear? So this difference is called as hemoglobin glycation index. This is called as hemoglobin glycation index. Now you can ask me, ma'am, I'm in a rural setup. I can't, the patient is not getting, the patient is not understanding, the patient is not affordable to get a CGMS. CGMS sensor will cost you around 5,000. Reader will cost you around 10,000. Patient is not affordable. Now what shall I do? Then you can ask them to spend at least 700 or 800 rupees on a fructosamine sample. Glycated fructosamine. So, glycated fructosamine is nothing but your glucose getting glucose getting bound to the albumin. So it is going to tell you the last 6 weeks average of your glucose. Okay, so you can calculate HbA1c from this area also. You have this glycated fructosamine, no? Through regression method, HbA1c, approximate HbA1c can be calculated through formulas. And this HbA1c is now compared with measured HbA1c. If there is a difference, that is called as glycation gap. Okay, so you are measuring HbA1c and you are comparing with the fructosamine, and that is called as glycation gap. When you are measuring HbA1c and you are comparing it with the mean blood glucose, which is otherwise the mission's HbA1c, then that difference is called as hemoglobin glycation index. Now you can ask me, what is the difference? Why should I be even bothered about it? Okay, so these are all the things that you have to know. Imagine, let's clear this area. It's too crampy. Imagine you have a low glycation gap. What is meant by low glycation gap? Imagine that the glycation gap is somewhere between 0 to 1 or 0 to 1 for that matter. You have -2 glycation gap. That means the measured HbA1c was 6, but the actual HbA1c was 8, as I told you in the previous example. So then it would be -2. It is a lower glycation gap. What has happened here? Actually, the patient was having a hyperglycemia. But you are looking into the HbA1c, which is measured. Okay. So you think that the patient is in good control and you will never adjust the patient's insulin. You will never increase the patient's insulin, pushing him to hyperglycemia. Okay. So high measured glucose would be there. You would overlook the glycemic management. You're pushing him into microvascular and macrovascular complications. So lower the glycation gap, higher would be the patient's glucose, and we are overlooking the high glucose in the patient. We are not looking into that. So patient would be always in hyperglycemia and would be into complications. Okay. Similarly, when you see high glycation gap, there is a very high risk that you could overtreat the patient. Imagine the measured HbA1c is 8, but the actual is only 6. The glycation gap would be 2. Okay. If this is the case, you are actually over-treating the patient and recurrently pushing the patient into hypoglycemia. Clear? So this is the practical importance of glycation gap. It's been extensively used in research. It's not have percolated into real market. It's very difficult to diagnose only. But why am I even bothered about glycation gap is what you have to know. For that, you have to understand how HbA1c increases. So HbA1a is there, HbA1b is there. Depending on the type of the glucose moiety that is binding to the RBC's valent residue, it varies. Okay. So HbA1c is when glucose binds to it. So what happens is if this, it usually enters into the RBC through GLUT1 channel. And if the GLUT1 channel is overexpressed, what happens? Even if glucose is normal, it would be entering into it. If it is underexpressed, if glucose is even high, it will never enter into it. So based on the GLUT1 expression, HbA1c may vary. Okay. Similarly, the intracellular glycolysis enzymes, it's actually HbA1c is non-enzymatic glycolation only. Okay. So sometimes after glycating, there would be an enzyme that is needed for deglycating that. If that enzyme is not acting also, you will have low glycation. Yeah. Okay. So that means your HbA1c would be constantly higher. It will never be lower. Okay. So HP variants again. Now the problem is not with the entry, not with the enzyme which is reglycating the HbA1c. You have direct problem with your hemoglobin variant. The beta chain, the valent residue of the beta chain, the valent is not there. HPE would be there, HPF would be there, some other HP is there with the patient. So what happens? So binding won't be there properly. Okay. So and the intracellular pH is not maintained. The patient is a G6PD deficient patient. Frequently pushed into hypoxia. Frequently the intracellular pH is not maintained. So it doesn't create an ideal environment for your glucose to bind with valent. So if that is the case, also HbA1c would be not reliable. So these are all the reasons for your glycation gap. This can be posed as a potential MCQ. So please know about it. Okay.